Welcome back to the Voices of Women Summit, where in honor of International Women's Day 2022, we are raising the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. Your host for this session is Consuela Munoz, founder and CEO of Your Own Confidence. She has another amazing guest coming right up. Take it away, Consuela.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another great session. Super excited to be here. And our next speaker coming up, very excited for her, is Tanya Jolliffe. And Tanya, if you could, welcome you to the program.
I'm happy to be here. I know it's a tricky name. No worries.
Sorry about that. But
No
we
worries.
are really excited, and I'm really excited to be talking with you about your talk topic, which is becoming a mindful eater. And it's going to be awesome because Lord knows I need some help. But before we get into that, I really want to know why are you so passionate about mindful eating?
Well, I worked originally as a registered dietitian in a hospital, and I worked with end-stage organ disease. So end-stage kidney disease, end-stage liver disease, and then people who had gotten transplants. So kind of the sickest of the sick. And then I went from there and worked with online health and wellness coaching. And that was supposed to be the healthiest of the healthy. And then I went from there and I was working in a corporate setting, and I was working with truck drivers in a corporate setting. And they're kind of in between. They've got some medical issues, but they're trying to be healthy to maintain their CDL license. And I also work with a nonprofit organization that deals with eating disorders. And the one thing I found that was consistent with all of those groups is that everybody and everything is based on a diet, an eating plan, an exercise plan, a routine, and it's not focused on health. And so then I start to read the statistics of how unhealthy that we're the most unhealthy society that we've ever been. And yet everybody's dieting, everybody's focused on health and fitness and all of this stuff. There's all these fitness clubs and programs and all this stuff. And I started to realize that it's all about being a number and being a smaller number and being a smaller body and not really accepting the body that we have and focus on a diet and numbers and pounds and inches and all of that stuff. And I was like, I want to be a non-diet dietitian that focuses on health and well-being. And I knew that to be true, that being healthy is not based on a number or size, because I had some disordered eating in my past, and I was the most unhealthiest at my lowest weight as an adult. And so I knew that this was a dieting hamster wheel that we were kind of all on. And so I wrote a journaling program and put into it what worked for me to help me move away from diet culture and into mindful eating and becoming mindful about my body, how food feels in my body, how I feel, from day to day by what I eat and how I live. And realized that it's a diet culture that needs to move to a culture of wellness. And so published my book, founded a company, and here I am.
That is so needed today. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you guys want to put this in the chat, but hashtag non-diet dietitian. I love that. I love that. I feel like I've noticed that myself, like everybody's dieting and everybody's exercising. And if you look at what Google search comes up for it's like massive amount comes up for that. And yet we're still so unhealthy. Like
right.
Something is not right here. Right. So I love that you really have dove into that and done some of that work for us. So I can't wait to hear what more you have to tell us about how we ourselves can move away from that diet culture.
Right. And just to jump it off, put a 1 in the chat if you've been on a diet in your life, and put a 5 in the chat if you've been on more than 5 diets.
The number that I've been in.
Type number 1, put a number 1 if you've been on at least 1 diet, and put a number 5 if you've been on more than 5 diets, 5 eating plans, 5 eating programs. Because most of us have been on many, and especially in the last 10 years, everybody's selling you something, a new plan, new product, new fitness routine. And what we come to find is that's what dieting culture is all about. It's all about selling something, selling a product, selling a program. And I'm not against selling, but it's got to be about health. It's not just got to be about a lower number. So when we get into the first part, is diet culture is real. So put in the chat what you think diet culture is. What, if you were going to define diet culture, put it in the chat. What do you think diet culture is? We first have to understand that culture, whatever culture we're talking about, is based on shared beliefs, assumptions, knowledge, and values. And for us, diet culture comes from visual media, print media, and social media. And the 30 years of my career, I have watched that grow and change. I was in college in the 80s, and that's when Diet Coke came out. And if you remember the Diet Coke messaging, it was the healthier version of a diet drink over tab. And so they already started the messaging about something being healthier. And so, okay, so we think we're healthier, but it was really about losing weight. It's always about losing weight because a lower number is supposed to be healthier. And that's just not true. But that is what society says. So what are some of the comments that came in about what do they think diet culture is before I spill the beans?
So we're getting things like marketing, it's sales, targeting your niche. It's a sham, leading us not to accept the body we have and only going for that body image.
Wow, what a well-informed audience I have. I'm so excited that they're on the right track. You know, everybody's selling something. And the ones that get me the most is the products that you have to buy, the food that you have to buy, the drinks, the powders, all of that stuff that you're having to buy. And oh my goodness, somebody didn't like that and my phone jumped in. Sorry about that. It's all about what you're buying, and that's marketing. They want you to buy their product or their service or their food. And that's the culture, and that we're not okay in the body that we have, that we need to be a different body size, different body shape. We all come in different shapes and sizes. And we have to accept that we come in different shapes and sizes. And they actually use that to their advantage in commercials. If you look at a commercial or an infomercial, you will find that they use an endomorphic or a rounder body type, bigger body type, bigger boned body type in the first part of the commercial. Or
tab diet. And it was a whole diet where you were just supposed to drink tab.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like the grapefruit diet. You know, you only drink grapefruit, eat grapefruits, or you don't eat
Cabbage
this,
soup
or you do
diet.
eat that. Right. All of those. And if you think about that, that's the messaging that has been there. We have been having over and over and over again, is that you should only have this, you should only have that, you should avoid this, you should avoid that. You know, one of the things I have to give is about the keto diet. And that's a big one now, that people are following a keto diet. And I just have to say that a keto diet was created for people who have seizure disorder and epilepsy, and it changes your brain chemistry. And so following that to lose weight, you will lose weight because you're starving your body of the nutrients that it needs, but you're also changing your brain chemistry. And once that's been changed and altered, you don't necessarily be able to move that back and change that back. So I throw that caution out because lots of things that people are selling don't necessarily benefit you. They don't make you healthier. They might make you lose weight. And so that's where I want people to get off the hamster wheel of diet. I want them to become aware of what they do with food and why they do it. So that's the first question I'll ask for this section is, do you know what you do with food and why? Put it in the chat if you know, you're aware of what you do with food and why. And what do I mean by that? Am I a stress eater? That's kind of the first one. Am I a stress eater? And many people don't recognize that they're a stress eater or why the stress affects them the way it does, which is why a stress program is kind of important, because it's the kind of the first step. What foods do I eat when I'm stressed? Am I eating chocolate because I need caffeine and I'm looking for a high? Or am I eating cakes and candies and cookies because I need a blood sugar high. Well, every high has a low, and every rise in blood sugar to make you feel better and fix things, you have a crash that comes. And the same with using alcohol, the same with using drugs to help you deal and cope. That the high might feel better, but it's short term and it doesn't last, and it has a long-term effect. But people use food as a drug to numb pain. People use food as a companion to relieve loneliness. People use it as a bender to fill a void of emptiness and loneliness. And they use it as a control mechanism for a stressful life and learning how to cope. And it's like, food is the thing I can control. I can't control my work. I can't control my boss. I can't control my kids or my family, but I can control my food. And I'm going to obsess and control about my food. Oh, and by the way, society tells me that the body type that I have isn't the right kind of body type. So I need to have a different body type. And so I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose 10 pounds and I'm going to do it in 30 days. Well, then I'm not going to follow that for the rest of my life because it really wasn't manageable to maintain it for the rest of my life. So I go back to all the old habits that I had before, and I just continue that cycle over and over again. Try something different. Oh, lose 10 pounds. Oh, then I gain it back because I go back to all the same things. So when we start to look and becoming attuned to what we do, the habits, the rules, the routines, the rituals, the things that we do with our food, we have to start to unpack what do we do and why do we do it. And we have to look at the emotions and the triggers that are involved. We're a whole being, and physical well-being is the thing everybody pays attention to. That's what a diet is focused on, is physical well-being. Well, that's one dimension of your well-being, but it's not everything. Emotional well-being, mental well-being, all of those things are important. As well as understanding what's triggered, why is it triggered, and the feelings that I have. So you get the emotions, and then the feelings come in, and the thoughts that what am I thinking about? Am I obsessing about it? That my body's not right. My body's not right. Or the person said this. I can't believe they said this. And I just keep playing it over in my head over and over and over again. And suddenly I'm at a bag of chips. And every time I'm thinking about it, I'm eating the bag out of the bag of chips. And so it's starting to put those pieces together. Some people, it's exercise, and they marry those two things together. And they obsessively exercise. And if I don't exercise, so they'll exercise with a stress fracture, because if I don't exercise, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have burned X number of calories, because everybody's about counting those calories. It's not a bank. Your body is not a bank that you deposit and withdraw. And unfortunately, that diet culture tells you the very opposite, that it's about a deposit and a withdrawal. But that's not how health works. That's not how longevity and long-term health works. And so we have to start looking at the actions that we do, whether that's binging or purging or over exercise or following a new routine or trying a new diet or any of those actions. Why are we trying the action? What's tipped it off? What's made us want to try this new action? And that's where mindfulness has to start. It has to start with understanding, what do I do with food and why am I doing it?
Yeah, so we were seeing some comments about stress eating, emotional eating, and not paying attention. I think also something that comes in, I know this is for me, is habits, right? Like, oh, on this day I get this treat, and on, Sunday mornings I get to have extra treats, right? And so I think that's part of it. And that feels like, again, that we're not being mindful of what we're eating. It's just part of the habit. And I want to say, you said something there about our bodies not being a bank where we make withdrawals and deposits. And I want to say, like, I literally have heard some health person say that. Like, I've literally heard the opposite, like, yeah, we're a bank and you have to make, enough withdrawals, and it's like, oh my goodness.
And that's based on based on the idea of calories, right? 3,500 calories is a pound. And so if I expend this much, but that doesn't take into account muscle mass, because the more muscle mass you have, the more you burn. And that can't be captured in a calculation. I mean, it can be, but you'd have to do you'd have to go and have body percentage and all of that kind of stuff calculated. And that's what athletes do. Olympic athletes, they go to that extent. Okay, that's great for an Olympic athlete. I was a college athlete. That might be okay even to dive into some of that as a college athlete, but your average person, we're mixing messages. We're mixing messages that were meant for one group of people, and we're applying it to all people. And we're not, it's not the whole story. I guess that's the way to put it, is the whole idea of being a bank and withdrawal and all, that's a partial message. It's not the full message. And it's not the same for all people. And we're trying to lump all people into one category and say, well, do this. And it's like me saying, well, I did this and it worked for me, so you should do it too. Well, we're each an
One size,
experiment
it's
of one.
that one size fits all approach,
Right.
right? It's not going to work when it comes to this. And
Right.
then I think what you're saying, it doesn't even take into account, like you were talking before about the marketing and the different body types.
Right.
I'm obviously not tall and skinny, so it doesn't matter how much exercise or how much I diet, I'm never going to be taller. I
Right.
might get skinnier, but I'm not getting taller. I'm not going to have that body type. And it really, most of it is focused around that look that you have to achieve, whether you have that body type or not.
Go back to an Olympian. Look at a gymnast and look at a basketball player. A successful gymnast and a successful basketball player do not have anywhere near the same body. And yet they're both very successful in the bodies that they have. And so thinking that everybody has to be the same size and shape, well, that's ridiculous. But the whole idea then that you have to be in a smaller size, well, that's a weight stigma that we have developed in our society. And that's a dieting culture that has created that. And we have to begin to move away from that. And I want to go back to something that you mentioned before about the treats and the idea of, well, it's Sunday, so I get this treat. That's all based on diet culture too. That language and that mindset of I deserve this or I get this because of this day or whatever, that goes back to putting good and bad foods and having a whole list of good foods and bad foods. There are foods that are healthier for us. There are foods that are less healthy for us based on the nutritional content and the nutrient content. And when I say being a non-diet dietitian, I still care about the nutrients that you get. I still care about well-roundedness. One of the things I learned in this last year and a half is that we are a society that's deficient in vitamin D. And the people that suffered from COVID the most were the people who were the most deficient in vitamin D. So if you want to supplement, that's great, but it needs to be based on your needs for your body and your lifestyle. So the nutrients are important, but to say a food is good or bad, that just starts to label things. And then that starts to be that whole, well, I'm cheating. And well, no, I'm going to eat a food because I enjoy it, but I'm going to maybe not have that one as often as maybe I have something else that's a little bit more nutrient rich.
Well, if you're okay, we did have a couple questions come
Sure.
in. We had one question regarding, is there something, and I'll have to scroll up to see it here, something about, or advice, what advice you have for people in the US where they feel like the food is making them sick, but they don't have time to grow their own food and prepare all that?
You can start by going with food in its most natural form. So the perimeter, you've heard that before, the perimeter of your grocery store or your market is going to have the healthier things for you. So you want to start with removing the processed foods, because it's mostly the processed foods that make you feel the most uncomfortable and the most icky. But I will also say that being mindful is knowing, how does a food feel? If you eat nuts and they bother you, then that's a mindfulness practice that you need to say, okay, I had this yesterday and I feel horrible, or I have a headache, or I have diarrhea, or I have constipation because of these foods that I'm eating. Organic helps because you don't have the pesticides and the chemicals. So if you can afford organic, that is a benefit. If you can afford grass-fed beef or poultry that does not have antibiotics, then those are the things that you want to move towards. But it can't be an all or nothing, because it is more expensive. And right now things are more expensive than they've ever been. So if you can start by removing those processed foods, applesauce is processed. The whole apple is unprocessed. So that's kind of a difference just right there, because you're going to get additional fiber that's going to help you in a whole apple. If you're going to have applesauce, you would want it to be unsweetened. You don't need added sugar that could be changing things, that could be making you not feel good after you eat it. And then the last choice would be sweetened applesauce. So that's kind of an example of the varying differences. They all provide the same nutrients, but they provide them in different forms.
And are getting more and more processed as you went, right?
Right.
We did have one more question. If you can cover quickly, they were
Sure.
talking about, do you ever develop anything for an autoimmune compromised plan?
Well, autoimmune, it depends on what I have an autoimmune condition myself. So it depends on what the autoimmune condition is, and finding out what are those triggers, because every autoimmune disease has a different trigger. And so, yes, we can certainly work one-on-one, but it's not a blanket thing. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm on this diet because of immunity deficiencies or whatever. There isn't a blanket thing. And if you're doing that and you're not finding the results, it's probably because it's not tailored to you and it's not personalized. And that's where working individually and being more tailored is beneficial, versus just somebody on Facebook had this offer and I tried it. So.
Well, this has been really eye-opening, and there's a rumor that you have a great freebie and a VIP gift. So could you tell us a little bit about your downloadable?
I do. My downloadable is 4 Secrets That Improve Your Well-Being, and chronic dieting and ending chronic dieting. There's a whole list of questions in there that can help you determine if you are a chronic dieter, that you can answer yes or no. Yes, this fits me. No, it doesn't. And if you've got 4 or 5 of those that you're answering yes to, that gives you a good example, a good idea that you're a chronic dieter. So that whole listing is in there, as well as the importance of managing stress and being aware of the stress and what it's doing to your body physically, emotionally, and how you can begin to manage that. And that fits in with my VIP gift, which is a stress management virtual coaching program. It's an 8-week technology-based virtual coaching program. So I kind of give you all my best education and tips and tricks. You get something every day from the comfort of your home or work, through the convenience of technology, to help you build a toolbox focused on your physical, emotional, mental, and behavioral effects that stress is having on you. And as you start to peel those layers away, then you can say, okay, how do I become mindful, not just in my eating, but in my activity, in my movement, and in my life, and begin to move in that direction.
Awesome. And before we get to wrapping up, I just wanted to, well, one, if you don't already have the VIP, you can still go out and register to get the VIP, so you can get that super awesome course. I mean, an 8-week course to help us manage stress. Who wouldn't benefit from that? But I also did want to let you guys know who our next speaker is going to be, and that is Toni Kaufman, and she'll be speaking about lessons learned on a life well lived. So that sounds very intriguing. And before we wrap out and we send out, I just want to ask, are there any final words, words of wisdom that you would leave with us today?
Yes, my tagline is to ignite the change within, and the change has to come from you. Don't be afraid to give up a diet and become more mindful about who you are, what you do with food and activity, and make a commitment to be healthier next year than you are this year. Your weight might not be any different, but you definitely might be healthier.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming on today, and I hope to see you in our next exciting talk.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing session of the Voices of Women Summit, where our mission is to raise the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. For recordings of all sessions, plus an amazing VIP gift bundle, upgrade to VIP now. If you have any questions or problems during the summit, email our support team at support@voicesofwomensummit.com. Stay tuned. We have another fantastic speaker coming right up.